Hi, I'm Brian with Hanning Law Limited, attorney for businesses and creatives. On Monday, the Supreme Court issued its ruling in Google versus Oracle. This case, while directed at software development and coding, may have impacts across industries reliant on copyright. The case was deciding if copying of code prohibited under the Copyright Act was otherwise permitted on the defense of fair use. The concept of fair use is codified in Section 107 of the Copyright Act and is elaborated on by a number of cases, including now Google versus Oracle. Fair use tends to crop up a lot in fan communities regarding the fans' abilities to participate, to show their love for a team, a game, a show, and it also comes in the territory of creating, of what becomes inspiration, what's homage, and what ends up being the use of an existing thing as copyright infringement versus as fair use. The first place we really should look is the Copyright Act, because it details, at the very least, structures for most issues. Section 107 states fair use is a defense against copyright infringement in certain circumstances, meaning fair use is not an affirmative thing to say. It is a response if somebody says, you've stolen my work, you've infringed my work. Fair use says, maybe, but I was allowed to. So fair use is found on an examination of the facts against four equal factors. We talk about this as balancing the factors, which is true because you can have one factor in a certain case that really guides the case, where in other situations you need much more evidence and of a situation. The four factors in Section 107 are: 1, the purpose and character of the use, including if it is commercial or not. 2, the nature of the copyrighted work. We're typically going to look at both of them as a comparison. 3, the amount and substantiality of the portion used of the underlying work. And then the fourth factor is the effect of use upon the potential market or value of the underlying work. If I copy somebody's poem and then resell it as a poem, that's undercutting the original market value versus doing something else. So these factors are highly focused on the facts of a case. It is a situation where, going back to this poem idea, somebody copies the poem, sells it in an anthology. That is taking, an improper purpose, taking the entire work. It is using it for market gain. Most likely not fair use. Versus somebody who copies the poem in a book about critiquing poems and is using that poem as an example of how to critique. Well, it may still have a commercial purpose, but that purpose of critique and education is much more likely to be a proper purpose. You may still have copied the entire portion of the work, and it all may still be written, but the market value is different because the poem is sold to one type of market, where a book on critiquing poetry is sent to a different one. And so it may be fair use. So with regard to the question of purpose, and sometimes the substantiality, it really depends on the case in question. In Google versus Oracle, it was focused on purpose here. But the idea of transformation and transformative nature. The idea is that the Constitution of the U.S. provides for the Copyright Act to exist for the purpose of promoting art and science. And so fair use is literally the limitation on the government monopoly over the work for the purpose of innovation and progress. And so this case is tweaking that test a little bit, and we're going to have to see how that test shakes out over time, if it's literally just for software or if it becomes more prevalent across multiple types of cases. But what transformation suggests is taking it from an original to a commentary on the original, or to make a social comment, really changing the underlying purpose. In Google versus Oracle, they've opened it up potentially to including innovative works that are different. So like I said, we'll have to see how that really shakes out. But with all of this in mind, what is fair use? Fair use is a defense against a claim of infringement that says even if the copying wasn't authorized, it is permitted under law. Fair use depends on the direct facts of the case, and there is a limit on the predictability of any situation because we're looking at 4 factors with specific facts and weighing those to get to a result. We have a test. It is useful and relevant. And with all of that in mind, I'll talk to you all next week.